guys, it's Emily from Doa Deer Nursery here. It has been a very long time, so if you are new to this channel, welcome. If you are a continuing subscriber, thank you for sticking around. I'm really glad to have you. So I wasn't really sure kind of what to do with this video today, so I thought let's just jump right in. I have been, as I'm sure many of you know, kind of away from the reborning world for some time, and relatively recently I have been kind of gradually working my way back into creating and selling reborns and making content for my Reborn YouTube channel here, Doa Deer Nursery, and sharing a little bit on Instagram. So today what I wanted to share with you, it's a little bit of a creepy sight at this point, but one of the dolls I more recently completed was the Reborn Johannah. She's a gorgeous sculpt. I've been wanting to paint her for quite a long time, and I was lucky enough to have someone order her as a custom. Now I did complete her painting several weeks ago, but I shipped her head off to a qualified rooter of her mommy's choice and just got that head back the other day. So now that she is rooted, I can finally get her 100% completed. So I thought I would share just the final process of getting her put together and what she's looking like right now. So to start, again, it's a bit of a creepy sight, but let me show you what I have so far. So this is the completed body. You can see she's got just the most adorable little feet and hands. I went ahead and saved myself a lot of headache by going ahead and weighting and stuffing her body and putting a Wonder Wafer in. She smells wonderful right when I completed her. That way, when her head came back from her rooter, I would have very little left on my own to-do list. So that's definitely saved a lot of time up front. And let me go ahead and show you her finished head. First off, let me tell you who she was rooted by. A super talented artist, Reborn Miracles by MJ. You can find her on Instagram as well. She just did an absolute phenomenal job with the rooting, so I'm very excited to show you. I did already officially unbox her, but just for the surprise, cover my signature here. Here she is. So her painting, of course, is by me. I did root her eyelashes. That's really the only rooting I do myself. But this absolutely gorgeous head of what I would probably consider to be strawberry blonde hair was done by MJ, and it's just beautiful work. And this is right out of the box. I haven't brushed it or anything. Her hair still looks nice and smooth even after shipping. You know, this kit, what I like about her is just the shape of her features kind of lends itself to a lot of different styles. I did paint her as, you know, a fair-skinned Caucasian baby. That's what her mommy wanted. But I like that this kit can really be done in a lot of different ways. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is kind of the remaining bits of assembly. So I'm just gonna kind of set her little body aside here for a moment. And the first thing I'm gonna do is add a magnet. That's really the only thing I don't do when I'm sending a doll to the rooter. I'm not sure why, it just doesn't seem like it makes much sense to me to have the magnet in there in the way of the rooter. So I have this little Ziploc bag full of magnets. I'm gonna go with a slightly larger one. Doesn't look very large. But I just really want to make sure that everything is secure. Now, her mommy did go ahead and send me a pacifier that she actually uses for another one of my Reborn dolls that she owns. She would like the girls to have interchangeable passies. So again, saving myself some work ahead of time, I went ahead and made this passy before I even got her shipped off. I just wanted to make sure that the magnets were going the same direction. These are actually repelling from one another, which lets me know that they will be attracted to the same side of the magnet. So I can use either of these when kind of testing out to make sure I have the magnet going the right way. So I wanted to bring you in a little bit closer so you can see this next part of the process. So I'm taking my trusty E6000 glue. I don't use this for everything, but I use it for quite a bit. And I have just kind of an old brush. This is a brush I've dedicated specifically to gluing because it will ruin your brushes. I want to do this gently so that I don't mess up her hair. There's really no perfect rhyme or reason to this. What you'll want to do is when you look inside the head, show you this the best I can, you can kind of see these indicators of roughly where the mouth would be. So you'll almost notice kind of these indentations or a bit of lumpiness to the vinyl. You can obviously see where the lashes are glued down. And I'm going to use that as a general indicator of where I want this magnet to go. It's actually very helpful when you have light. I can almost see clear through the vinyl. So I'm just going to get a nice big glob of E6000 because again, I really want this magnet to be secure. Just getting a nice big old glob there. Be very careful to keep this glue away from any other part of the Reborn. Just want it exclusively inside the head. And I'm just very, almost kind of messily, just sort of painting it around to really spread it out, because I want the magnet to land in a good spot, and that's what we're going to do next. So I'm actually going to start with the passy that her mommy made to make sure it's sitting in a way she likes. I'm going to hold the passy to the face, kind of roughly where I want it to sit. I'll do this part upside down, so it might be a little tricky to see. So passy is roughly where I want it to sit, and I'm just going to drop the magnet in, because again, the magnet on the pacifier will attract the magnet. And you can't see from your angle, but I can tell you looking in here, it did land right in the glue, which is exactly what we want. So continuing to hold that passy, I'm going to grab a smidgen more glue. A little trickier now, and I'm doing it one-handed. So I've got more glue on my brush. And now I just want to spread a little bit more glue right around the edges of the magnet, just to make sure it's really nicely placed and held in there. So now I feel confident that when I remove the passy, that the magnet will still stay in place, which it did, thankfully. I also want to test that the other passy I made is going to work as well. I'm going to hold it on its side so that I don't dislodge the magnet. Passy pulls right to it, and look at what a perfect position that is already. That's great. So I didn't even have to move the magnet around. You might find sometimes once you get the passy on, you're like, oh, that looks a little wonky, that's not where I want it. And you can move the pacifier around, and the attraction between the two magnets should hopefully move the magnet around inside of the head as well. But this was a perfect first time try. So now I want to let this fully set and dry. What I'll often do is just take a little blanket like I have here and kind of scrunch it up to create a little support area, and just let it sit here like that for at least the next few hours, and then we'll get on to the actual assembly. So it's been a little while, not nearly as long as I said it was going to be, but I feel pretty confident that this magnet is quite secure. Even when I take the passy off and kind of move the head around, the magnet stays pretty well in place. So let's move on to the actual assembly portion. A couple things you're going to need here. Some polyfill. I've been using this Angel Silk unbelievably soft polyester. I do quite like it. It is very soft to the touch, but I don't know if you can really tell a huge difference in the stuffing of the body. I mean, it feels quite nice, but I think you can use whatever polyfill you want. One of the things I do first is I immediately put some polyfill inside. If there is any glue that's still not perfectly dry, this will also help because it will just immediately stick to the glue and kind of give a little extra backing to that. Plus, we don't want our weighted glass beads just going right into the head, kind of loose. We want them to be surrounded by a little bit of stuffing. So I'm just going to start with that for now. Then I've got my pantyhose. Obviously these come in a set of 2. The second one is already inside her body with some glass beads. And then we've got the glass beads themselves. I have a teeny bit left from one open pack that I'll just go ahead and use up, but we're definitely going to need to get into a second bag. And then I've got my teeny little pair of scissors. I have a funnel too, but I don't usually find I need that unless I'm putting glass beads into a small limb opening. So really I find the easiest way to do this is just to scrunch the pantyhose up, slip it over the bag so that there's no spillage, and then just dump whatever is left in that bag in there. Make sure you really get it all out so that it doesn't spill out when you remove the bag. So you can see we're definitely going to need quite a bit more. I also don't really weight these when I'm doing them, or I guess measure the weight is really what I should say. I just kind of go by feel. I find just the way it feels in my hand is a much better gauge than an actual scale. So here I'm just going to kind of tip it in, let it fill up a little bit. We'll just kind of stop there and check it. Make sure to get all the beads down to the bottom. Yeah, I think I can go quite a bit more than that. I like my doll heads to definitely have some good weight to them so that they're nice and floppy. I don't like them being too heavy. You know, I find with real babies, although their heads are very floppy, they're not particularly heavy. They just don't support them on their own. Say we're really close. I think just a teeny bit more weight on that would be good. And you can always adjust. If you put it inside the doll head and find it doesn't feel right, you can always change it. That's feeling pretty good to me. So first thing I'm going to do is get these glass beads put away to avoid any mess later on. I naturally am an impatient person. I always just want to get to the next step, get things finished. But I find I save myself a lot of headache if I just take a second to put things away. So now I'm going to twist this up quite a few times, and I'm going to fold it down over onto itself. You'll notice there's still so much twisted pantyhose here that I'm not concerned it's going to come loose. Loop it over on itself and tie it off. And that way I feel really confident that these beads are going to stay secure in here. So now we're going to pick up our sweet little baby head here. I'll go ahead and take this Cassie off. I don't feel like we need it anymore. Now I'm going to work it into the head. Now obviously this is bigger than the opening, so we kind of need to work it in bit by bit, being nice and gentle, especially with this rooted hair. I don't want to tug on the hair at all. And then that should just pop on in there. Now, the next thing we want to focus on, you'll notice there's still just tons of empty space, negative space in this doll head. And we want to make sure to fill it with polyfill, but in a way that weights the head in a direction we like. So, I'm just going to lay her down like this. I like when the weight is focused more towards the top and the back of the head. That to me gives it the most natural fluffiness. So I'm just going to grab a handful of polyfill, kind of holding the head in the direction I want the weight to fall. And just push polyfill in here. You're going to want to stuff this nice and full without overstuffing it so that there's any stretch or unnecessary pressure on the vinyl. So now that I feel like the front of this head is pretty well stuffed, I'm actually going to flip her over because I don't want that weight completely at the back of the head. I want a little bit of buffer there, so I'm going to take smaller amounts of polyfill and just kind of, you'll notice I'm angling it upward. Not too much. I'm going to flip it back over, and the weight still feels more or less where I want it. A good test is to actually just set it up on the ring, and you want it to just kind of flop backwards. You don't want it to be so weighted towards the back that it instantly just plunks downward. But you'll notice when I let it go, it'll sit for a minute and then kind of be pulled down towards the back. That to me feels pretty good. I do still think she needs a bit more stuffing. So let's go ahead and use up what's in here. Now I'm sure it might seem like a lot, but this polyfill is also super, super fine. So it does kind of, you know, compact itself pretty nicely. Now we want to do a double check. Make sure that magnet didn't get moved around, that everything is still where we want it to be. I think the weight of her head feels great. If anything, you know, it's a little bit on the heavier side. But I think for this baby, I know her mommy wants her a little bit heavier. So I think that works for me. If this were, I don't know, let's say I were making this doll for maybe a younger reborn mommy, like a little girl or a little boy, I'd maybe go a little bit lighter, make her a little bit more play friendly. Okay, so now we're gonna go ahead and get her all put together. You'll see I've already got her in this little onesie, and I've already got her limbs all attached. Let me go ahead and make this a little bit easier for myself by slipping the onesie down to fully expose the cloth body. All right. She's already stuffed pretty well, but I think I'm gonna add just a smidgen more. What you'll find is when you put the head on the body, suddenly there's this additional weight, which can almost collapse the structure, I suppose, of kind of the chest and shoulder area. So it doesn't hurt to have a little bit of extra polyfill here. In fact, I think what's left in my bag is kind of the perfect amount. Doesn't always happen that way. It seems to have here. So even though the polyfill is poking out a little bit, I'm okay with that because I know it's going to get smushed down over time and as I add the weight of the head to the body. I'm going to go ahead and stick with this string tie for right now. I most often use zip ties, especially on the limbs, but I find with the head, I don't actually mind the string tie. I think it allows the head to have mobility without, you know, spinning around or rotating too much. All right. This is where we get a little tricky because we're trying to balance getting the flange all the way in there without letting any polyfill sneak out and peek around here. So I'm going to do a little tighten, and then an adjust, and another tighten. Again, doing the best I can to be careful with this beautiful, beautiful hair. Her rooter just did a phenomenal job. Okay, you'll almost feel, to me, it feels like this little hitch when you feel the tie, as if whether it's a string tie or a zip tie, finally get into the flange area. The flange is that little divot in the neck. She's still got some good rotations. I feel good about that. I'm going to go ahead and, rather than a bow, like you saw earlier, which is a more temporary tie, I'm going to go ahead and put a little tension and double knot it. And again, never be too concerned. You can always change these things. You can change the weight of the head. You can change the tension around the flange if you find you're not happy with it. All right, so before I triple knot it, I want to do another check here. So giving it a little gentle tug. I do not feel like it's coming loose at all. Her head can still rotate easily without me having to fight it. So I feel really good about that. I'm gonna go ahead and take my teeny tiny scissors. I like to pull the tie away as best I can. Give a little snip. We want to get close, but be cautious. And there we go. She's assembled. It's 2:56 p.m. It's Saturday today. Oh gosh, the date escapes me, but Saturday at the end of February. Let's go ahead and just slip our little arms back on in here. I'd rather stretch out the onesie than put too much pressure on the vinyl. And oh my goodness, she is too precious. Look at her. All right, I'm gonna get my table cleaned up here and then officially introduce her. All right, so now that she is all complete, let me officially introduce Reborn Johannah, or Johannah, is the kit, painted by me, Doe Deer Nursery, and rooted by Reborn Miracles by MJ. And let me just say one more time how blown away I am at this rooting. I haven't brushed it once. I haven't put any product in it. You know, I've been being gentle, but as you saw, I've been moving her around and putting the head down and getting her assembled. And no tangles, no fluffiness. It just takes a gentle finger comb to get it all smoothed down again. I mean, her work is just gorgeous. And her weight, just to give her a little test. She feels great. Her head has that nice floppiness without being too heavy. Her limbs, I know already, having messed with it, felt great, but now just the whole proportions of her body feel excellent. So thank you guys so much for watching. I know it was, you know, a shorter process, just kind of the final little bits of assembly, but I hope you found something helpful in it. I'm very excited to be back to some degree. You know, let me know if you'd like a more in-depth video on kind of where I've been, what my plans for reborning are now, what kind of content I may be making in the future. Please feel free to let me know what you would like to see. I'm really looking forward to working on more babies here in the near future and maybe bringing back my my weekly Reborn with Me videos or Week in My Reborn Studio videos. and maybe even some ASMR and role play. But anyway, thank you so much for watching and can't wait to see you guys again.